Hey there, retail tech enthusiasts. Welcome to the Rising Stars podcast, your go-to for all things retail tech and point of sale. I'm Kate Orara, Partner Development Manager at Star Micronics, and I'm excited to guide you through this journey. Here we dive into the latest innovations shaping retail, hospitality, and cannabis industries. So whether you're a techie or a business owner, this is your backstage pass to insider knowledge. Join me and the Star Micronics team as we innovate and rise together. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Rising Stars podcast. I'm really excited about today's episode. I have a good industry friend I'm talking to today. And if you're watching, you already know who that is. Hopefully you know who that is. If you don't, you're in for a treat. If you're listening, you're about to find out. But I am joined today with none other than James Korte, who is the Director of Marketing at BlueStar. And is that a recent, you just got promoted to director, right, James?
I did. Yeah. It was a big moment. I did just get promoted. I'm terrible with dates. But I think it's been 4 or 5 months, maybe. It's probably been like damn near a year. But yeah, it's still fresh, very exciting. I've been in this industry, and this industry for me is, the retail hospitality technology industry, but then also seeing as Blue Star is a disty, we touch a lot, really every industry from a technology standpoint and from a, like vertical market standpoint. But yeah, I feel like people like you and I have had conversations over the years just about why this industry kind of captures our imagination. And anyway, yeah, just been with Blue Star for a little bit over 10 years. Started as a member of the design team, kind of made my way over to marketing, and now I kind of laughed when you had sent over the message to say, "Hey, do you want to get together and chat?" Because you said, "We'll talk about your favorite thing," and you literally didn't even have to tell me what we were talking about, and I knew what you meant. So yeah, designer by education, marketer kind of by self-learning and obsession. So just super pumped to chat today. I've got a bunch of great topics lined up, I think, for us.
Well, I'm really excited to talk with you. I think so. You and I correct me if I'm wrong. We're both, and I actually did a recent podcast with Tyler Wells from Microtouch. We're both millennials, right? You're a millennial like me, right? So
Yes. Old
I think
millennial.
that has something to play in this because of our generation. Like Facebook came out when I remember you had to have a .edu email address, and I remember I friended everybody. I don't do that anymore, but I remember friending because I just was like, I want to have the most friends possible. 700 friends, let's go. I didn't know 700 people, but I wanted to make it look like it.
For sure.
But I mean, we are the era of really digital marketing, and I think that our generation are the main pushers of it.
For sure. I mean, we kind of ushered in this generation in a way, and every generation is unique in some way, right? But I think one of our big claims is, I mean, for me, I spent the first 13 years of my life, we were just kind of chatting about our kids before we hit record. Basically, my oldest just turned 14. So up until this point in my life, I hadn't touched, the internet. I was going to say a computer, but that's not fair, the internet. And then it was like truly, and this sounds so cheesy, but like a whole world unlocked. And all of a sudden, my interests kind of started drifting from hockey and all my sports to spending a ton of time on the computer, as nerdy as that sounds. But yeah, it's a unique thing about us millennials, right? Is that we have one foot in the normal, real world, and then the majority of our lives at this point on the internet. And, millennials launched Facebook for better or for worse. I'm pretty sure Zuckerberg is a millennial. So yeah, it's a unique place in history that we hold, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, and I don't want, and I'll tell you, I think we could probably even talk about like the whole generation topic. That's probably a whole nother podcast. I mean, I already did one with Tyler, but there's probably one literally just how to market to the Gen Z population, like our kids these days. Because I mean, our sons are about the same age. My son's 14 or 15, excuse me, and he's going to be getting into the workforce and you know what, like, I mean, I hate to say it, like, a couple, like 8 years or something like that, or at least I like to hope that so. I'm
Right.
hoping for it,
Ideally.
but that's going to be a whole new generation of how can we prepare to market to them. But I don't want to get on a total side tangent on that. Maybe that'll be a part two that we dive into,
For
down
sure.
the road. But one of the things that you you are really well renowned for is your social media and your digital marketing. And I know us at Star have utilized your skills for digital marketing. You do this personally and professionally. And so I'm just going to kind of kick it off because LinkedIn is pretty much where our network plays into, or our
Sure.
channel. There are others, but I will say I personally get more traction on my LinkedIn than anywhere else, maybe because that's where I focus. But what is one digital marketing trend that you are excited about, but you're feeling that maybe the channel hasn't fully embraced quite yet?
Yeah, I love this. So first of all, I'll totally agree with you that LinkedIn is is my kind of main spoke when it comes to professional social. Um, People are everywhere, but what I love about LinkedIn is that it's easy to find the people based on where they work or their job function and things like that. But to answer your question, I think the trend I am most personally excited about, that I think that the channel's been a little bit slow to adopt, is just the concept of entertainment as marketing strategy. I think a lot of kind of just what you were talking about a moment ago, some of these younger generations understand that being interruptive, in a social media feed, where people are sharing useful information, sharing funny things a lot of the time, sharing personal stuff with something really buttoned up and corporate and self-serving, super product centric. There is a time and a place for that, even on social media. But I just really think that a majority of the time we spend as brands and as people on social media should be focused on how can I engage my audience purely for the sake of engagement. And I've kind of recently been making this point, and I always feel like people are probably going, "Why in the hell would I do that?" I'm not there to have fun, James. I'm there to, grow my company and grow sales and all of that. And my answer, my counter to that is, I know, me too. But no one's going to be paying attention to me if they're not paying attention, right? When I have something meaningful or better said, business relevant to say, if I've been boring you to death, the entire time we've been connected, then A, you're probably not going to be paying attention, but without getting too technical, I think there's an algorithmic element too. Meaning, if Kate or James spends a good amount of time just generally entertaining and sharing useful information, helpful information with people, and we average a certain number of impressions or engagements or what have you, that's going to help when it's time to go and talk about work stuff. On a semi-related topic, the idea of micro influencers, and that sounds really technical and new or whatever. And people have said this before, but the idea of influencers is not new. Michael Jordan being one of the most renowned kind of older influencers when it came to Nike and the Jordan line and all of that stuff. But I love the idea of leaning on people that your audience, your prospects, your customers listen to and trust as spokespeople for your brand. And honestly, we haven't done much in it at all of that at BlueStar. We did have an offering last year where our vendor lines could hire someone via Cameo, and we would kind of white glove that whole situation. So it was a little bit of that of, hey, let's go and get someone that people recognize to say something nice about us. But I just think the micro is important too, meaning these might not be people that they almost definitely won't be people that the average person had heard of. But in retail and hospitality, who are the people that people are paying attention to, right? It doesn't have to be a huge audience, but then how can we go and work with those people in a way that is, like we were saying a minute ago, entertaining, and it involves our brand. So that's, to sum it all up, that's kind of where I'm at. I think that the channel's been a little bit slow to realize and execute on the fact that it can't be all about us and our products and our services. We've got to cater to our audience in a way where, again, when we have something business relevant come to our event, we've got a promotion running this week, that we have the eyeballs tuned in because we have truly been entertaining them with what we've been sharing up to that point.
I could unpack this in so many ways. I mean, first of all, thank you, talking about the entertainment aspect. I've always kind of, I think even before this became a thing, and I think that was when I started just really diving into LinkedIn. And I did a solo episode on the Rising Stars about just how to develop your personal brand.
Mhm.
And so the entertainment aspect, yeah, showing people something outside of what the product is, speeds and fees, as we like to say. I mean, you did something, was it at Retail Now, where you're doing like the something along,
Oh,
it
the
was
Olympics.
brilliant. And it was so funny. And I just did a bunch, I don't know, I remember I did a flex off or something like that.
Yes, you
I
did.
still have the medal, I should have put it on. But it was fun and it showed personality because we are people working for companies. We're people first and then we work at the companies. And then the other thing that I want to unpack is it's not even just so much for a business, but for a personal professional development. So if you are someone who is outgoing and has some and people are gravitated towards you, use digital marketing to promote that so you can be a micro influencer. So companies do look at you for opportunities. I think that
For
is,
sure.
I mean, this is obviously, we're kind of trying to help businesses capitalize on digital marketing so they can improve their businesses, but also, helping people as well. So
Well,
some of
the
you Gen
people
Zs and millennials listening, like, take advantage of it.
for sure. I mean, I wrote a slide for something the other day, and I wrote, people are the tentacles of a company. So the way I think about, personal branding is like, if I could create a reputation for myself that I know what the heck I'm talking about, then by proxy, BlueStar has an employee who knows what the heck he's talking about. So that's good for both of us, right? And it's something I've been thinking about related to, our kids joining the workforce is I do think that people are going to become the face of the brand more so than the logo. And this is something there was a topic you brought up that I want to mention this in a little deeper fashion later, but yeah, I don't know. I do feel like ultimately, to your point, people are the people, or people make up companies. And so if you can have a small army of your people out there making noise, being helpful, being funny, it's important. And to your point about the heck did we call it, the impromptu Olympics at Retail Now, you know, part of what we were thinking about is how can we involve a lot of other people, people that we like, people that we know, people that we want to get to know, and maybe have a closer business relationship with them. Let's go have fun together, right? And then specifically on trade show content, since I know we have a trade show heavy industry, and I'm thankful for that. Um, there are so many cool opportunities to do something fun with all of the people around and all of the energy. And I feel like sometimes, and people are busy, especially those that have to work the booths, right? I have the luxury that a lot of times when I travel for shows, it is to create content. So again, I have that freedom to roam and do stuff like that. But the bar isn't super high. So doing just something fun, I just think people appreciate it. I've made the point a couple of times about LinkedIn that you don't even have to necessarily be funny. You just have to attempt humor, and people will
Yeah.
pay it off. They'll be like, "Oh, look, Cordy's trying to be funny. He's not succeeding, but I see what he's doing here." So I always think it's a good policy.
Awesome. Well, let's kind of move on a little bit. So you are the director of marketing, and I know that Star has done some digital marketing campaigns with you. So I'd love to kind of maybe have you tell like a case study, like what was your favorite digital marketing campaign of all time, and whether it's one that you drove or someone else, and why did it stand out to you?
Okay, so I had two examples that had nothing to do with me. I'll use one of those and I'll quickly tell one of my stories as well.
Okay.
And it's nothing, the one that we did, it wasn't crazy, but it was successful. And I think it was successful for some specific reason. So I'll start with the campaign that we did. I think it was in late 2023, and it was with one of our new emerging tech vendors called Loop, who, for those who aren't familiar, which is probably the majority of people, this is an EV charging company. They manufacture EV chargers. We partnered with them and we targeted Wyndham property owners. So Wyndham is, a hotel parent company. They own 8 or 9 different kind of sub brands or properties underneath them. And Loop had some sort of agreement that they were going to kind of be the go-to for Wyndham properties. However, Wyndham properties are independently owned. So it's kind of it was up to Wyndham to get in front of or up to Loop rather, to get in front of these independent property owners and convince them, hey, this is a great deal, X, Y, and Z. So we sourced a list of Wyndham property owners from Zoom Info, which is an online database. We also got maybe 1,000 contacts from our partners at Loop. And we basically combined 3 things. We did a physical direct mailer old school. But in this instance, and I'll come back to why I say it in this instance, effective in reaching the right people. We also target them with ads on Meta, so Facebook and Instagram. And then we had our outbound telemarketing team follow up. So after the mailer had arrived, whether or not it was actually received, and after the ads had run for 2 or 3 weeks, we had, some follow-up calls happen. The reason I say that I think mailers were effective in this case is because this is an industry, and these owners and operators, general managers of these properties go into their office every day, right? So that's a critical thing to keep in mind. The response to the direct mailer was above and beyond. So we put a QR code on it that led back to a landing page with more information. And then there was a form on that landing page that said, schedule a guilt-free consultation or site visit or something like that. So it was in essence saying, invite us out to your property to look at your parking lot, to assess it, to give you an idea of how many chargers and what it would cost and how much revenue you can expect. Because that was part of the gig. As you put these chargers on your property, they're actually generating you revenue. Anyway, to cut to the chase, we had like 28 people out of 2,200 or so respond directly to the mailer, scan the QR, go to the landing page and say, not just, we've done a lot of like content marketing and ebook stuff. These were people raising their hand and saying, I want someone to travel to me in New Jersey, in Texas, whatever, and come and consult with me about this. So that was awesome. And then in addition to that, our telemarketing team got another 30 or so leads. It ended up being a couple $1 million in revenue, which is just, that's not every day. If I could get $100,000 in ROI of every campaign I ran, I'd be a pretty happy marketer. So it just stood out as a very effective campaign. And the truth, and I think the marketers out there will appreciate this. My team, we didn't do anything different. We gave it our best. We put our heads together on the messaging. We were targeted. What I think happened was that EV charging is a novel technology, right? It's new. It's not a highly competitive space yet. And there was special incentive and very targeted messaging for these Wyndham property owners. It didn't say, put these EV, the mailer, if you can visualize, it was a 6x11 two-sided, piece of paper. It didn't say, put these chargers on your, hotel property. It said, Wyndham owners, EV charging, as a service or whatever the heck the headline was. It really called them out, which I think can be a super effective kind of tactical thing to do. So didn't mean to go so deep into that one. Didn't really plan to talk about that one, but one of my favorites just because it did end up really having a great return for us. The timing, the topic, all kind of aligned in a great way. Want to talk about one other brand that I would be surprised if you haven't heard of, but I just think that their initial kind of product launch campaign was genius and edgy and bold, which are all things that I really kind of dig when it comes to, brands sticking their neck out and doing some meaningful marketing. And before I say the name, I meant to say this earlier, which is it's tough. And it's not every brand isn't going to be able to say, you know what, we're going to go out there and tell people who we are. And if some people don't like it, tough luck, but some people are going to love it. I think consumer brands, artists, musicians, things like that are you see that out of them more than you see it out of companies who, like BlueStar, maybe like Star Micronics, who said, hey, we don't want to be, taking sides on issues and stuff like that. But I do appreciate and I do believe, if you and I were to start a company, not that I'd say we go out and just rabble rouse for no good reason, but I do believe, I should say, I prefer the idea of creating raving fans. Are some people maybe going to be a little bit off put by what you have to say because you're Red Bull and they're not a skateboarder, they're not an extreme sports person, so maybe they don't feel as connected? Yeah, maybe. But those that feel connected are going to be incredibly loyal fans, the type that are going to, take selfies of themselves drinking your products and stuff like that. So the company I want to talk about is called Liquid Death. You familiar with these guys?
It sounds familiar, but
I'll remind you, and you'll probably go, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. They're
okay.
a water company,
Okay.
canned water. So they put their water in cans instead of bottles, which was one of their first differentiators. And then their artwork, and you're going to see this if you don't know what I mean by now, you're going to see this and go, "Oh my gosh, yes, I've seen these." It looks like a heavy metal album cover. It's kind of in like an old English that's roughed up. It says Liquid Death. It's just very different. If you go into a gas station and open the water refrigerator, it stands out. It's not in a bottle. It's got
Well,
crazy
and I
artwork.
and I don't normally do this. I'm actually like on my computer looking because it looks like beer. Like it looks,
Yes, yes, it does. It absolutely looks like a beer. So Their
Oh.
strategy, there was basically two things they did. So first of all, their initial tagline was "Murder Your Thirst." They went like, again, really almost like death metal intense, which is not my vibe at all, but I thought it was different and cool. And then they did, so their initial, or at least the first spot or video ad that I saw from them is they have this young woman as a spokesperson, and she's got a can of liquid death and she's pouring it out slowly, and it's just continuously pouring as if it's an endless can. And it's kind of cropped in closely on her, and she starts talking, and she's basically painting the picture that everyone thinks about water. And I mean, not just water in bottles, but waters in lakes and waters in ocean as calm and gentle and soothing and all of these things. But then she kind of changes her tone and said, but water is responsible for the death of all of these people every year. And you're kind of like, oh, it's jarring. They're talking about surfers and hurricanes and all these natural disasters that include water. And it's very convincing. And you're like, oh, water is kind of kind of dangerous, right? And so that's their whole thing. And the best part is, and it's a well-written script and it keeps your attention, and the camera's just slowly moving out, pulling out from her. The shot is becoming wider and wider. And at the very end, you realize she's not just pouring water out, she is waterboarding someone. So there's someone laying in front of her with like a thing over their face, and she's pouring water onto their forehead, like the torture method. And it's just so different.
Wow,
You're like,
that is very
right?
word. I mean, it's extremely is controversial the right
It's
word?
controversial, it's
Maybe.
edgy, and it's
It
the
is
kind of
edgy,
thing
yeah.
it's going to get some people worked up and they're going to be like, oh my God, like this is, insensitive. What about the surfers, but they're going to talk about it. So it's that earned media strategy of we can go out there and ruffle some feathers and totally go, east when the rest of the product category is going west. We're going to stand out. And I love that. So the second thing quickly about Liquid Death is, I think this was hilarious too. They are a company who either intuitively gets or has an agency that really understands social media. So one of the things that they did is they went and found people, I think on Twitter, back in the day it was Twitter, X, whatever, who were talking bad about their product. Liquid Death is the worst water I've ever had. And they went and seeked these people out, brought them in to a studio, and then challenged them. So they put a bunch of 4 or 5 different types of waters in like a paper bag, and these people had to blind taste test them. This is so crazy. When they got it wrong, which invariably all of them did, they shocked them. They were like
Oh
electric shocking these
no.
people on video, right?
Oh
And
my
so these
gosh.
people were like, like kind of losing their minds, and like it looked really painful, and it was wacky and wild, and probably got millions of organic social views for this brand. And I just thought everything about it is genius. Again, do I buy Liquid Death? No, it's just water. I buy whatever water. I take a water bottle with me, but I bet if you looked at their revenue over time that it has paid off. And in fact, I kind of meant to do that before we jumped on this call. Anyway, I just think that that is a cool recent example of an edgy, bold, kind of risky strategy and campaign example. So I'm going with Liquid Death.
Well, I know that we probably would not encourage our channel partners to waterboard or
Or
electrically
shock
shock. Unless
anybody,
if you get a waiver sign, that's all on you. Have fun with it. But
right?
what do you think? What is it? What would it look like to you, or maybe what the perfect customer journey in the channel space using digital marketing? Like, what does that look like to you, or what do you
Sure.
think it would look like?
Yeah, no, I love this question. So I'm going to start quickly by saying that what I think people want the perfect customer journey to be, which is prospect hasn't heard of us before.
Hmm.
We run some ads on LinkedIn. We run some ads on Reddit or whatever. We send out some email blasts. People see our message. People are ready to buy. They're excited. Immediately, they click on the ad. They go to our landing page. Our landing page is well designed and highly convincing. And in that moment, they go, you know what? I'm going to take the leap. And they book a demo with your sales team. Sales team sweeps them off their feet and they become a new customer. Unfortunately, that's not the way that it works.
It never works that way.
Right? It never works that way. Although it's funny, as a digital marketer who runs a lot of campaigns, as soon as you show someone a form on a landing page, they're like, okay, so they're going to click the ad, they're going to go to the page, they're going to fill out the form. And you're like, well, they might, but really, we're trying to um, build trust at scale, meaning we need people to know who we are, understand what we do, and then trust that we can do it effectively through some proof. And I'll come back to that idea of trust at scale. But what my perfect customer journey would be, and I will admit that this has happened infrequently for me over the years, but it's still what we're endeavoring toward, because BlueStar does not do a lot of outbound, paid advertising, although we are delving into it a decent amount now, from a new customer acquisition standpoint. But my perfect customer journey would be that our team has done the work to truly understand where our customers spend time, meaning, in real life and online. What social networks are they on? Do they spend more time on Facebook than LinkedIn, or, are they on TikTok or whatever the case? We know, the podcasts they listen to, maybe the newsletters that they subscribe to. We know the industry events that they attend. And in those places, we are sponsoring their podcasts, right? So the people who they listen to and they trust are talking about our brand. We're putting ads that speak to their pain points in the places they spend time online, like social media. We're not only showing up to industry events, but we're saying smart stuff on panels. We're doing fun stuff on social media. Ultimately, what I would love to hear from a prospect who enters our funnel is, you guys are everywhere I am, and all of the people that I trust and listen to seem to be aligned with you all. I had to come check you out. Clearly, you understand who I am and what my issues are, so I've got no other choice. What I can appreciate, and for those that don't know who BlueStar is, we're a technology distributor. There aren't 50 of those, but there are five or six or seven legitimate players in that space. And so, so to speak, if people already have one or two partners, do they need Blue Star? No, maybe not, unless everybody else is out of stock or whatever. But what I want is them to feel like we are so aligned with them and we understand them maybe better than everybody else, that, like I said, they eventually just kind of give up and go, okay, fine. Blue Star is everywhere I am. You guys seem like you get me. I got to be a Blue Star partner. That's my ideal customer journey.
So let's piggyback off of that. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see businesses in our industry making in their digital marketing efforts today? I think you kind of touched on it earlier, where people are just using it as a sales pitch.
Yep, there's that. I've actually got three quick points I'll make.
Okay.
There's one thing that, every opportunity that I have to make this point, I make it. And it's funny, I actually kind of chuckled to myself the other day when I was thinking about it, because I'm like, I actually have like some consistent talking tracks that maybe, people are hearing me say, they're like, gosh, he really believes this. So number one is that I think a lot of the uh, players in our space, especially on the VAR, MSP, solution integrator side, is they just underinvest in marketing as a discipline from a personnel standpoint, um, from a resources standpoint, and that's tricky, and I get it that there's a lot of priorities, especially for a smaller business, lots and lots of priorities, but I think I don't know. I don't think people have earned the right to throw their hands up when it comes to marketing. Oh, geez, we've tried everything. It's like, well, what do you mean? What's everything? Some Google ads, and then you hired an agency once? Like, I think marketing should be treated like any other business critical discipline, whether it's HR or sales or purchasing or whatever. And I still don't see a lot of that. So that's number one. Point number two is that they spread themselves thin from a market focus standpoint. So instead of saying we are built for hospitality, hotels, let's say hotels and casinos, you will go to a website and it'll say industries, and there will be a list of 14 industries. And I've been running into this for the good part of a decade now, where I've had the debates, I understand the thinking, meaning, well, James, we really could play in any of those verticals. Our system could work. Yes, it could. But two things. A, does it have the specific features that a product built just for a garden center would have? Or is it like, well, it covers off on 80% of what you'd want, but no, you have that specific need. No, we don't have that built. There's that. So I think focusing on a market or two gives you the ability to really customize your product, because product strategy is a piece of marketing. And not only is it a piece of marketing, it's a huge piece of marketing. In my opinion, a functional marketing team who really knows what they're doing, that's always getting feedback from the customer, and a product team should be super close in terms of, hey, if we were able to build this and this into the product, we're going to win more deals in this industry. So there's that. There's the product benefit feature, market fit. But I think for me as a marketer, just as important is the ability for my messaging to speak directly to someone versus very generically, right? Modernize your POS system versus, um, do better scheduling for your salon customers or whatever, because you've got that scheduling component or module in your product. It just really changes the game when you get focused as to how you can talk. You can start using the language of your end customer in a way that you couldn't if your end customer is 14 different end customers. So, yeah, to sum it up, it's under investing in marketing in general. It's spreading ourselves too thin in terms of markets we address. I know I didn't speak about number three, which is brand. So the idea of brand, which we've talked about a lot, I think sometimes, especially on the manufacturer side, people can convince themselves that incremental improvements on things like speed or different ports or whatever is really going to be what wins. I've been in rooms where I've heard people say, "Oh, well, I'm really excited to see how people react to our new model because it has Y." And it's like, well, A, they might not even know about that new feature. And B, I don't know. There are instances, right? When you have a brand new cutting edge compatibility, you're the first, you know, mobile receipt printer to have Bluetooth. Okay, you have a competitive advantage for as long as it lasts. But then once everyone catches up, then what? Then it comes down to who do they trust? Who do they feel most aligned? And from a trust standpoint, I mean reliability, support, the sales process, and I know this feels really touchy-feely to a lot of people out there, but I'd ask you to think about, the brands that you buy in your life. We buy brands that reflect who we want to be, right? And that seems like, well, how the hell do we do that as a manufacturer? You actually can. And a lot of the successful software companies out there have done that. So yeah, that's number three is thinking beyond the incremental changes in your products and services and thinking bigger picture to say, how can we be a company that people would prefer to do business with if all things were the same?
But that ties the third, and we're going to talk about the other two, but the third one ties back to what we were just talking about earlier about really a brand personality, a brand
Yes,
having it's well, in the digital age, AI and all of that stuff is huge, and everybody keeps thinking that computers are going to take over the world. Human beings, we are, this is touchy-feely sounding too, I guess. We are wired to have relationships, whether it's a marriage or a partner or friendships. We're wired for that. So that third component that you're talking about, I think people are, again, they focus on the speeds and feeds, which yeah, that's important because you do need to talk about those benefits. But
sure.
again, I've always said this before when I was doing the smiling dialing stuff and everything's just done via email. It's you have to build that trust, that relationship with your partner. Let them get to know the people. The people
100%.
are the company.
Yes. 100% agree. And I think sometimes when people hear brand, they just think branding, like we're talking about logos and design and stuff, which
Right.
in my opinion is extremely important as well, but it's a different thing. It
Right.
is, your brand. What is your brand? People have debated this an insane amount, but it is what people say about you or think about you when you're not around. It's truly what people think when they hear your company's name. And
Right.
it's not an easy thing to change, but so to speak, the good and the bad is I think a lot of probably companies out there don't hold a place in their prospect's mind yet because they don't have the $80,000 in budget to go and say, okay, this year, 2025, we're going to spend time and effort and money telling a segment of the market who we are and what we do. So they don't know anything about you. So I look at that as an opportunity to say, okay, if in 2025 you're listening to this or you're listening to the podcast in 2024, and in 2025 you say we're a small, point of sale company or software reseller, whatever the case, how maybe we don't hold a place. We know us. We've been around for 25 years. Everyone that works for us knows who we are. But to be honest and say, do the people who could buy from us, who don't today, know who we are? Have they heard our name? If a stranger walked up to them on the street and said the name of our company, would they go, "Oh yeah," or would they go, "Never heard of them"? And if they haven't, then that is an opportunity to get very focused on a group and say, what do we want them to think about us, and then start affecting it. But as a brand, um, yeah, show me proof. Why should I, as a consumer, trust you as a business? Show me who you've worked with before and what they've had to say about you. Anyway, I digress. We could talk about
Oh,
brand for
I'm
a long
sure we
time.
could. Yeah, again, we're probably gonna have to do a part two for sure.
I'm open to it, no doubt.
Yeah. So I want to combine the next two questions because we kind of keep touching about it, and it's especially with the economy, everybody's thinking budget. They're always
Sure.
thinking money, money, money. So what maybe is a creative way that smaller resellers and ISVs can compete digitally against the larger brands with the larger budgets? And if there's only maybe, and again, I'm combining two questions, but if
Yeah,
there's
it's cool.
only one marketing tool or channel that they should focus on, which one?
Those are both great questions. So, try to be concise here, but the creative way small resellers can compete, basically going to echo what I said a second ago. And there's 3 points here, but the first one is pick a segment of the market. How are you going to go compete with Shopify for millions of small businesses? You're probably not. But how could you go compete against them for a specific segment of retail or wherever it is that you choose by doing just that? Picking a small niche that you understand deeply and then building specific, whether it's services or product features that cater to them. There is a segment of the market out there who believes that one size fit all tools are not one size fit all, that they are not customized enough for them. So go and prove them right. Build that product that when they're looking at Shopify, they go, yeah, it's not very expensive and it looks pretty slick and people seem to like it. But then they get an email from one of your sales reps and you say, we are built for your industry. Here are the things that are different about our product compared to that big one that, yeah, it's great. So that would be the big kind of high level strategic advice I would give. The very tactical one I would say is go read the reviews. See what people are frustrated about when it comes to those big players. Is it their customer service? And use that as a way to build your sales approach and maybe actually change your organization. If you find out, oh, geez, their documentation isn't great. Well, is our documentation any good? Go make it great so that that's something you can then tell people. Number two, and we've kind of spoken about this, but I love it in this context. You're a small company, they're a big company. They've got boards, they're publicly traded, they've got 100 eyeballs on everything that they do. And maybe you don't. You can be the slightly toned down liquid death of your industry. Go
Yeah.
speak in a language that they can't. Um, be the anti-corporate, right? Be the company that shoots people straight and says things in plain language. I think that people are refreshed by that. And again, the tactic here is do the things that a big company can't. Well, what can't they do? They got all the money and all the resources, James. Yes, but they also have all of the red tape, all of the voices who are going to go, we can't go say that. We can't go waterboard somebody in our commercial. Okay, don't go waterboard somebody in your commercial, but do the agile, fun, slightly edgy stuff, or even if you replace edgy with just straight up, be straight up with your language, be plain so that people can go, man, it's refreshing to not have to read, jargon that I don't understand. These people are making things easy and understandable. And then on the design side, because I'd be remiss not to mention something, give your brand a fresh coat of paint. And I know this is an easy thing for me to say as someone who hasn't invested in polos and business cards and signage and things like that. But I think that our industry could really take a page from the startup world, which is little tiny companies with three people, two co-founders and their best friend, who have almost no resources except maybe the accelerator they're a part of, but they look like they're worth $1 million. They look like they're worth 10 million bucks online. Their
Hmm.
branding is on point. Their taglines, their website looks great. Perception is so important. You can look like a much bigger player than you are purely through visuals. And I think that not and I've seen some people do a really nice job of this, and I've seen some companies who could really benefit from, and again, I know this is a drastic suggestion, but even the way that startups name their businesses. I'm not saying you got to go out and be super trendy, but like do some analysis of the companies who have grown up to be billion-dollar companies or hundreds of millions of dollars. Their names are commercial, so to speak. They're catchy, they're short, they're not TLW and associates, right? They've got an identity, they've got a brand. So sit down, go through the exercise with your team. It's fun. How do you want to be perceived? Write down the adjectives. Do we want to be kind of fun and lighthearted and not so serious? And is the language on our website read that way? Or do we want to be, kind of hard asses about it? I don't know. But like, I just think that that's truly something that companies in our industry could benefit from is a fresh coat of paint and some thought about who do we want to be? What do we want to be perceived as when someone shows up at our website? Oh, and then the tools.
Yes.
So I thought on this one for a little bit. Whether it's a channel or a tool, I'm gonna go tools because, if I say I could suggest a channel today and it would be highly dependent on, what industry you're in. But then in a year, I might hear myself on this podcast and be like, I can't believe I was telling people to go here when clearly this is the new channel, right? I mean, I didn't know about TikTok a few years back, and now that's a place where people are making lots of money. So I would say from a tool standpoint, I would suggest a no code web page builder as a tool. And
Mhm.
then kind of along with it, I know it's supposed to be one, something like Canva. If you don't have a graphic designer, or
Thinking
professional
Canva.
designer, Canva's
Yeah.
so great.
It's
I
so easy to use. It's like $100, I think, for a year or something like that. It's
It is
not
fantastic.
expensive.
I've got a buddy that I do some freelance work with who has an account there and he builds presentations and stuff. So to
Mhm.
speak, I was kind of forced to use it one day, and then I was like, gosh, this tool is fantastic, man. There's a whole library of
Mhm.
assets and fonts. And
Well, you can do
so
like a LinkedIn post and it'll format it, and then you just literally drop and drag and you can do animations and
it's awesome.
yeah, no, I mean, I think that that is a really good, and like I said, I mean, I think the base package, it could have changed, but I think it's like $100 for the year, which is
That's incredible value.
nothing. Yeah,
Well,
I
yeah, but
mean,
those
that's,
two things you can experiment, you again,
yeah.
Kate, you and I have a business. I always used to like to use that example. And next week we want to run a Q4 promo. And it's like, gosh, I don't know. I can't design.
I'm gonna
Kate
have
can't do
HR calling me later, like, what are you and James doing?
it.
What are you guys
Are you guys
plotting?
actually starting a business? No, for the record, we are not. Not yet. Um, the ability to experiment and move quickly from a organic social or a paid social, whatever the case is, build a landing page, do some graphics for email, for social media. Those are the two tools. And this was tough because I am a tool guy. I freaking love a good tool. But
Yeah.
yeah, a no code web page builder or landing page builder plus a design tool that makes it, democratizes the ability to create cool visuals. Those would be my recommendations.
Well, and I think, yeah, I think those are really, really great suggestions, and they are inexpensive for these smaller companies. And again, I have seen there have been companies. I'm sitting there when I see them, I'm like, God, they have this huge presence. They look like there's this massive company, and they're really not they're not that big.
Yeah, there's 9 of them.
So you can make some noise, as you mentioned, like you can make some noise and not be a big massive Fortune 500 company and still make a lot of noise. And
Heck yeah. And again, it's instilling that confidence. And maybe I um, overvalue the digital presence, but shoot, if I do it as an old millennial, just imagine what, yeah, the younger generations coming in and going, ugh, these guys look like they haven't touched their website for 2 decades. Do you know what I mean? Versus this is a sharp look inside. It's almost that people aren't going to actually think about it. They're just going to feel it when they show up and go, these guys look legit, right?
Yeah.
It's that quick, or it's, gosh, these guys look really outdated. There's got to be something more modern. I know that's the way that I would feel.
So because I know that you are, and one of the things that we try to talk about at Rising Stars is how you're innovating and leading in technology. And I definitely can say with certainty that you are one of those pioneers in this industry. I think that there's a group of us that really have just had, and the thing is, we've been having fun with it. That's the reason why we've been successful. Is just like, and I tell people, just get in there and have fun, get your hands dirty. Try not to talk about. It's like when I was in college, when I was rushing for a sorority. You don't talk about booze, boys, and Bible. Like those are the, and you add if politics started with a B, then I would add that to it. Like if you kind of
Perfect.
just stay out of those types of realms, and just have fun with it, you really can't break it. But because I think you are always kind of thinking ahead. What's the wildest prediction that you have of the future of digital marketing for the channel specifically?
Wow, this is a good one. I initially thought to myself, I'm like, geez, I had a couple of thoughts. My first one was like that we're going to continue to be a little bit slow to adopt. And as a result, those that are taking some of this advice and thinking differently are going to stand out. I was also thinking that, the rise of AI is going to create a lot of noise, a lot more noise, and create even more opportunity for those who I'm not going to say aren't relying on AI. I use it almost every day, but I use it
Mhm.
as a supplemental tool, not as autopilot.
Right.
But my real answer, these are the ones I thought about, is that I believe, and we kind of touched on this before, I believe that the incoming generation, I mean, Kate, I'm 42 years old. I think you're a couple of years younger than I am.
Just 1 year.
People, okay, people in our age range are going to be leaders of companies if they aren't already. I mean, shoot, I know people my age who are founders of businesses that are doing awesome business today. I believe logos and company names and company profiles are really going to get replaced, not literally replaced, but supplanted at some level by personality, founder-led companies. I'll shout out Tyler Young at Tonic POS is a great example of this. I hadn't heard of those guys 2 years ago, and I actually think because I know that their parent company is called Versatech, and then
Right.
they've got
Yep.
Tonic and Bold. I think they rebranded. I think they brought in some smart design people, some smart marketing strategy people, and they said, let's give this thing more than a fresh coat of paint. Let's totally, redesign it. And then I think Tyler and a couple of the people within his business are doing an awesome job of leading the business from their personal brand, right? So I think we're going to see more and more of that as the people who, again, rise up the ranks and even the people coming behind us are just comfortable creating content, being in the public eye, yeah, and leading their brand. So I know that's not super wild, but for us today, if you think about that, you know, that the software companies out there, the resellers out there, even the vendors and the disties out there are going to be led by personalities primarily and kind of the logo and the corporate image, secondarily. So that's my take.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good prediction. And and you and I both know Tyler very, very well and have seen, I mean, they're definitely a company too, where you've seen, you see them everywhere. You didn't see them, a couple of years ago, you really didn't see them much. And then I remember meeting them, I think it was at Vartech last year. And then it was kind of ever since then that things have started to pick up quite significantly for them. So it's been crazy to see what has happened to that company over the
For
last year.
sure. And I'll just say as well, again, using Tyler as an example, he shares what he believes and what he thinks. And again, is that maybe not gonna, could there be someone out there that goes, nah, that dude's not my style? Yeah, maybe, but I think there's probably three or four or five times more people that are like, huh, that's how he runs his company, huh? I
Yeah.
think I like the way that this guy thinks. That's energy that I could, live with every day or whatnot. And I think that truly, like we said before, is the benefit on sharing kind of who you are and who your team is it's going to attract like-minded people that have similar goals. So love that.
Well, I have had an amazing time. I think I could probably talk to you forever. But again, I do think maybe after NRF we do like another kind of a recap, maybe kind of talking about the show itself and then just the direction of things. I think that would be a really good episode. But
That would be cool.
I before I kind of start to close things out, I do have one question. I just, I'm kind of going to start asking all of our guests if there
Sure.
is one thing in the channel today that you could change, what would it be and why?
Ooh,
I
one
didn't
thing.
send you this question ahead of time.
No, I love being put on the spot. I do this sometimes on my podcast, and people are always thrown by it. One thing I could change in the channel. Oof. Um, um, Maybe that I could just go to every event. I can't come up. I'm sure I'm going to think of a really good answer after
Cloning,
we
right? You
hang
want
up
to
here,
clone
but
yourself so you could go, but then get still collect the memory.
yeah, or like just find a way to actually get my job done, but be on all the events. It's just I always have such great input and energy leaving an event because I don't know, I'm just such a believer that good marketing or just good strategy is really based on insights from the people that you're trying to reach and you're trying to connect with. And there's no better way than being in person and just the things people say where you're like, ooh, that was actually important for me to know, right?
Mhm.
I actually had a guy a couple of years ago at a retail now. I sat down at the next gen event, I think, and we introduced ourselves. He goes, "Oh, you're from BlueStar? Oh, your guys' online shop. You guys need to work on this, that, and the other thing." And I was like, "Hold on, let me get a notepad." Like to really get that feedback from somebody on what's meaningful to them and what can make a difference. But yeah, I just want to say quickly, Kate, that this has been awesome, and thank you for all the kind words, and thank you for inviting me to be here. And I would definitely be down to do this any other time again in the future.
Awesome. Well, this is your chance to kind of plug your own your socials, anywhere people can follow you. Of course, we're going to put everything down in the notes of this episodes, but anything
Cool.
you want to plug in there where people
Sure.
can get in
Yeah,
touch
I'll just say, we kind of touched on it, but I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I'm
with you.
still working on, being super consistent, but I put a lot of effort into sharing content, not just about me, not about my company necessarily, but about marketing and design and my observations. So I would love to be connected with people there. And then I'll just give a quick plug to my employer, BlueStar. Again, we're a technology distributor. We touch all industries and many, many technologies, and we try to differentiate ourselves on being more reachable, more accessible, and more willing to really get in there with you as a partner and put together marketing plans, execute campaigns, and just go the extra mile to, to truly be a partner to folks that work with us. So that's it. That's my shout. Thanks, Kate.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, James. I appreciate it.
Thanks. I'll see you soon.
And that is a wrap for this episode of the Rising Stars podcast. A huge thanks to our incredible listeners for tuning in and to our phenomenal guests for sharing their insights. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback fuels our journey to bring you the best in retail tech. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and behind-the-scenes content. As we sign off, remember the future of retail technology is in our hands, and together we are shaping it. Keep innovating, keep rising, and until next time, this is Kate Orara signing off. Together, we rise.